speaking of working with somebody that makes you comfortable, I am married. You are married. What money conversations should couples have?
All of them.
Because I'm not going to lie. My little behind the scenes of my marriage, we really don't talk too much about money. She just knows that I really, really like saving it. And I will every now and then step in and go like, yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah. I think obviously it's ideal to have these types of conversations before getting married too, is to say, what are your values when it comes to money? How do you feel about money? And that person may say, I don't know, as long as I have money and I can go shopping, I'm good to go. You need to understand that. If the person says, no, I have a very practical view. I have a process. I know how much money I save. I know what my goals are. I know what my disciplines are. I know what I will spend money on, what I won't spend. You need to understand where that person's coming from, and a lot of it can come from their parents or whatever their history is. But I think you and I were talking before the cameras were rolling, talking about spouses being financial or non-financial. And most households of at least, couples, one of the spouses is financial and one of them is typically less so, right? And that may be because they have other responsibilities in the home, raising children, whatever they are. So what we find now is that more people are coming to us in their late 50s, early 60s, where the non-financial spouse is saying, look, I don't get this. I'm way behind the 8 ball. He or she gets it, but what if he or she is not here down the road? I need a partner in this process, somebody that I can trust and relate to. And oftentimes the financial spouse who's gotten them a good bit down the road is a little resistant to that because they feel comfortable in what they're doing. But they also recognize that the non-financial spouse might need somebody to trust in and believe in. And that's why that step is being taken. But I would say in every household, there's somebody a little bit more leaning into the finances than somebody else. And I think it's important that financial spouse drags, if necessary, and often cases that's the case, drags that non-financial spouse to some of the information.
Well, I know why you want that to be the direction of dragging, because I'm sure you've seen the person who's not the financial person start doing the dragging, meaning, no, we can spend this, we should spend this.
Yes, I have seen that.
How often do you see those horror stories?
Yeah, so it's funny because I was thinking of someone, obviously, who I'm not going to name, but I've dealt with people in the past, and I can think of, in this case, it was a husband and wife, and the husband was posing as the financial spouse. And what I mean by that is the wife was pretty sure he knew what he was doing, and he was good at it, and they were going to be just fine. And when we had our first meeting and we kind of went through everything, it got awkward because I started pointing out, yeah, that's not going to work, or I don't think that's a good idea. And you could see him getting insecure. You could see him getting defensive. And they ended up not becoming clients because I think it offended him so much for her to see behind the curtain because he was posing as the financial spouse when in fact neither one of them were the financial spouse.
And then just because we're talking about couples and February, and how do you make sure that you're not just posing?
I think you know.
Yeah.
I think you know. I mean, you can fool yourself to some degree. We all do at certain stages of life. But I think when it comes down to it and you put your head on the pillow at night, you're like, yeah, I'm screwing this royally up. I mean, I think you know. And I think sometimes the non-financial spouse doesn't want to know. They're like, it doesn't sound good, but I don't want to know. And I know several people personally in that category where the non-financial spouse is like, I don't know if this is going to work out. But anyway, what are we having for dinner? It's just human nature, I think.
That last question was, what money conversations should couples have? I would like to know. And, we were talking about not too long ago about conversations with kids when it comes to money. I want to know the accounts that you should or could open up when you have a kid. What accounts are ideal when you have a child?
Yeah, so there's numerous choices that we all hear the terms bandied about: 529s, uniform gift to minors. Roth IRAs are actually becoming popular for kids who are lawn mowing age, right? Because they have to have some income to put in there. I think probably the most prevalent is college savings, and we now know that 529s are going to be maybe eligible for other things like maybe a first-time home purchase or whatever. Also, I had a question yesterday from a client, actually last night at dinner. Somebody asked me, one daughter, she's not that interested in college. Other daughter definitely wants to go to college. Can we transfer this 529 down to the second daughter? The answer is yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can. I even told her she could go to culinary school with the 529 if she wanted to. So they are transferable.
I think they call that the 1058.
That's correct. That is the 1058. Glad you know that form. So those are the ones you hear the most about. Uniform gift to minors accounts, previous to the 529 was the thing of choice. And what that means is you open up an account, it's taxed at the kid's tax bracket after a certain level. When they turn 18, the money becomes theirs. One of the things I always warn parents about is that when Junior turns 18, that is Junior's money. So if Junior finds out about it and wants to buy a Ferrari, Junior can do that. So be conscious of that. They all have pitfalls and benefits, but by and large, those are your choices.
529, is there, I might be making this up. Doesn't it lock in the average college tuition or something along those lines?
Well, that's prepaid.
That's prepaid?
Yeah. So each state, Florida has one, for example, where you give them X amount of dollars, and regardless of the increase in tuition, which seems to go up at twice the rate of inflation these days, you're covered on it. So in other words, if tuition's $8,000 this year, and then 10 years from now when your kid goes to school, it's $40,000, they're going to pay the $40,000.
Now, Scott, I asked you what financial conversations should couples have, but I've also heard just recently about a death folder, and that sounds like something that's in an anime series.
Yes.
What is a death folder? Should I have one?
You should.
What is it?
Hopefully you won't need it, but you should probably have one. So for a lot of people, and obviously young couples are probably not, their heads aren't here, but as you age, you should have something that in the event of a catastrophic event. I recently knew some people who died in a plane crash together and left behind a child that had no access to information, and it took the family weeks to even figure out where bank accounts were. She was headed off to college. It was a big giant mess. So a death folder would be, whether it's a legitimate manila folder or an electronic version, which by the way they make, in fact, our clients use something called the Vault which is our service, where they can download all their important documents, their trusts, their wills, their real estate papers, their health directives. All of these things are downloaded into an electronic file. We have access to it. So if something were to happen to one or both of those people, we could provide that information to the survivors. So in that folder is all those things. It's, okay, this is where my IRA is. It might just be a list. This is where my IRA is. This account number. This is who you call. This is my accountant. This is a phone number. This is who you call. This is my estate attorney. These are my estate documents, yada, yada, yada. So there are numerous things you can put in this folder that would make somebody in a very traumatic time make their lives a little bit easier.
Is it okay to take offense, though, when your wife is very adamant about you being the only person in the marriage to make a death folder because of said due confidence of lasting longer? You don't have to answer that.
Yeah, I don't know the dynamics there, but I can guess.
And being that this is February, I want to kind of keep with the couples questions. How do couples make sure that they're on the same page financially?
Seems like it would be as simple as a conversation to me. I mean, it doesn't seem complex. I mean, I think, somebody mentioned to me that he and his wife, they do a get together once a month just to talk about money. I don't know if I suspect it's at the dining room table. Hey, let's have tacos tonight. Let's break out our yellow folder. Mm-hmm. Let's look at the accounts. Where are we at? Are we comfortable? Where's our retirements? I mean, this could be literally a glass of wine conversation. It's going to take 10 minutes. Oh, yeah, look, what is our balance? What was it last month? How's our IRAs doing? Are we comfortable? They're in the right places. Are we on pace with our savings? So I just don't, I think people overthink these things.
Yeah, it's really easy to convince yourself of how not sexy a yellow pad of paper and a pen is.
Everything's sexy after the third glass of wine. So you can knock it out. Just do it once a month. It's an easy, quick conversation. Pass the hot sauce. How's the checking account?
By all means, my marriage isn't, I don't want to put it as an example of what you should be doing, because I love my marriage, but every marriage is different.
Sure.
But I know one thing that has really helped out is that, sure, we like to talk about the now and what we have and making sure that everything's good. But I do not know how someone can have a partner and not have, at the very least, some of the same goals as a team. And one thing that, instead of, we don't necessarily just talk about money on those little date nights when the things come up, but we always talk about our goals. And of course, money is a massive part of our goals. So it doesn't just have to be dollar signs. You can, by this year, is this what we're looking for?
Yeah.
I know that has helped my wife and I out tremendously. And I think our hit rate's probably like 50%.
I think you do have to be somewhat on the same page, and I don't want it to sound like or seem like or feel like that it's got to be about how much money can we accumulate. And, what are we doing to maximize every dollar so that we can waller in our money in some room someday? No, it's really about what are your objectives. I have a client, his goal, he and his wife's goal is to visit every presidential library in the country. Right. And that you say, well, then what does that have to do with money? Well, you need money to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And he's well on his way. And when they do their planning, when they do their monthly glass of wine to talk about money, they know, look, we're gonna go to DC and we're gonna see the Nixon Library, or not DC, I'm sorry, to California to see the Nixon Library, the Reagan Library. We got to fly out to California. What's that going to cost? Are we okay? Yada yada yada. So, yeah, again, it doesn't need to be as Scrooge McDucky as it sounds. It just needs to be a thoughtful conversation and make sure you're once a month on the same page, because what happens is you don't want to get to my office at 60 and one of the spouses has no idea how you're going to visit the presidential libraries. In fact, you're lucky if you can make it downtown to the Orlando Library based on what's already been done.
Have you ever heard a husband or a wife in one of these counselings go like, you did what?
I've seen a lot of eye rolls. I've seen a lot of mouths open. I've seen a lot of confusion. And usually we can overcome it, but there have been more than a couple of instances where it became contentious.
And you don't even have to force yourself to overcome it. Why? Because you're having that monthly hangout with your partner, understanding what your goals and financial plans are.
I think sometimes people have been in marriages for 5, 10, 15 years and have no idea what the other person really thinks about money. I'm willing to bet half the people in this country who are married or at least cohabitating with somebody for a very long period of time, they have no idea really what that person thinks about money.
And there ain't nothing like a little steak at Applebee's can't fix that. Go ahead and have a little Ruby Tuesday sandwich. A little frosty, have a conversation, get those, if they're uncomfortable, make them comfortable. By having them, you can get better at it.
The more you have, the more comfortable you're going to get. And you'll find after meeting, the 8th month of doing this, that things are starting to come into line. Right? If one's going this way and one's going that way, and once a year you have some vague conversation, but if every month you're having this conversation and you're pulling things in, making them tighter and tighter, I think what you'll find at the end of the year is you'll have a well-made bed.